Melissa Jenkins was a 33-year-old single mother who, at first glance, appeared to be an ordinary American woman. However, she was much more than that. Melissa was genuinely one of the kindest individuals in her community, always willing to lend a helping hand to others. Following her tragic passing, the residents of her neighborhood continued to speak highly of her character. She earned her living as a teacher at St. Johnsbury Academy in Vermont. Although St. Johnsbury is a private institution, it operates as a non-profit, giving it an advantage over many similar schools. Melissa served as a science teacher, beloved by her students. Each year, it seemed that students vied eagerly for a spot in her class, as she was an exceptional educator who fostered a welcoming and supportive environment. She was dedicated to ensuring that every student felt valued and heard, demonstrating a genuine commitment to nurturing future generations. In addition to her teaching duties, she also coached the school's basketball team for grades 9 through 12. Melissa understood that her students required not only a solid education but also opportunities for extracurricular engagement, and she was more than willing to facilitate this. In addition to being an outstanding teacher and coach, Melissa was also a devoted mother. While the circumstances that led her to become a single mother remain unclear, it is known that she had a 2-year-old son who was the focal point of her life. Despite the challenges of working 2 jobs to support her family, she embraced the effort wholeheartedly, motivated by her desire to create a better future for her son. To achieve her goals, she dedicated her nights and weekends to working as a waitress at a nearby restaurant. Given that Melissa spent nearly every waking hour either at her job or in public, it was particularly alarming when she seemingly vanished on March 25, 2012. None of her friends could reach her that evening, and she was also responsible for caring for her 2-year-old son, which heightened her ex-boyfriend's concern for both her and their child's safety. After several hours without any contact or knowledge of her whereabouts, he made the decision to call 911. On March 25, 2012, the police received a call from Melissa's boyfriend. He reported that he had spoken with Melissa earlier that night regarding some friends who were experiencing car troubles. She had offered to assist them, but after that conversation, he received no further communication from her, despite numerous attempts to call. He mentioned that he had gone out searching for her that evening but found no sign of her. The situation took a curious turn when he noted that Melissa had sounded unusual during their phone call, a detail he initially dismissed. His concern escalated when he discovered her car abandoned on Goss Hollow Road, a route she typically would not take. This dirt road was located just a short distance from her home, yet her ex-boyfriend could not ascertain any reason for her presence there at that hour. As he neared her vehicle, he became aware that it was still operational. He peered through the windows, yet there was no indication of Melissa's presence. However, he soon observed a particularly alarming detail: her son remained secured in his car seat in the back, alone. After relaying this information to the authorities, investigators arrived within minutes. The circumstances surrounding why the young boy was not with his father remain unclear, but he was placed in the care of a family friend while the police worked to clarify the situation. Clear evidence of a struggle was discovered just outside the vehicle, including various shoe prints, scrapes, smudges, and an unidentified set of tire tracks. A baseball cap was located on the ground near the front of the car. However, it did not belong to Melissa, and none of her acquaintances recognized it. The tire tracks observed a short distance away suggested that the driver had fled the scene in haste, but it was the subsequent piece of evidence found near the tracks that heightened the police's suspicions. They discovered Melissa's cell phone on the ground, damaged beyond use. Officers retrieved the phone for evidence, but it yielded little information that could aid the investigation. By the time detectives had gathered all the evidence from the crime scene, darkness was beginning to fall, presenting a new challenge for their inquiry. Police worked diligently throughout the night to gather every possible piece of evidence. However, it appeared that the suspects had successfully fled the crime scene without leaving any significant traces behind. The only exception was Melissa's 2-year-old son, who had witnessed the entire altercation and was prepared to share everything he had observed with the authorities. In the investigation, as is common in missing person cases, detectives initially focused their suspicions on Melissa's boyfriend. During the police interview, he provided several inconsistent statements. Melissa's brother indicated that the boyfriend desired a serious relationship, while Melissa was not as invested and was either contemplating ending the relationship or maintaining a more casual arrangement, particularly given her responsibilities as a mother. The brother suggested that the boyfriend frequently pressured Melissa for a deeper commitment, despite her reluctance. However, when questioned by the police, the boyfriend contended that the brother was either misinformed or deliberately misleading. He asserted that he was in agreement with Melissa's choice to proceed slowly in their relationship. Initially skeptical, the police decided to take a mold of his boots to compare with the footprints discovered at the crime scene. Ultimately, the results showed no match, leading the authorities to release him. The following day, investigators enlisted the assistance of a detective who specialized in interviewing children. Authorities brought in Melissa's son to discuss the events surrounding his mother's disappearance. Remarkably, despite being only 2 years old, the child provided substantial information to the investigators regarding the incident. He indicated that his mother had been assaulted by 2 individuals. Furthermore, when questioned about his mother's fate, he demonstrated by grasping his own neck and stated to the detective, "Mommy cried." Following this alarming revelation from Melissa's son, attention turned to the child's father. It is important to clarify that Melissa's boyfriend, who had been mentioned earlier and was the one who found her vehicle, is not the father of her son. The boy's father resided approximately 80 miles away in Burlington. After interviewing him, police quickly established that he had an alibi and was subsequently cleared of any involvement. This development led investigators back to St. Johnsbury. Upon entering Melissa's residence, they meticulously examined the entire property but found no signs of a struggle or anything unusual. It appeared they had reached an impasse. However, during their search, they discovered a seemingly insignificant detail: a business card for a snow plowing service owned by Alan and Patricia Prue. Although the relevance of the card was uncertain, it appeared that Melissa had received it recently, prompting the police to consider that the business owners might possess valuable information if they had been present before the crime occurred. At this stage of the investigation, law enforcement held a strong belief that Melissa had likely lost her life. While they remained open to various possibilities, they braced themselves for the worst outcome, as the evidence collected at the crime scene indicated that the assailants did not plan to keep Melissa alive for an extended period, and time was of the essence. The police conducted thorough searches of all potential locations where incriminating evidence might have been discarded, yet they consistently came up empty. They even examined local rest areas and ditches, but found no leads. Approximately 24 hours into the investigation, a significant tip was received that had the potential to change the course of the case. A caller from a nearby boat launch reported observing something unusual protruding from the water at a local fishing site. Initially, investigators did not place much importance on the tip, but they opted to follow up nonetheless. Upon their arrival, it became immediately apparent that they were at a crime scene. As they approached the enigmatic object in the water, they quickly realized it was not an inanimate object but rather a woman, Melissa Jenkins. A scuba team was summoned to the crime scene to assist in recovering any evidence that may have been submerged. It is important to note that this occurred in mid-March in Vermont, where the water temperatures were nearly freezing. Nevertheless, the scuba team undertook their task with professionalism. Upon diving, they discovered that Melissa had been restrained with cinder blocks and rope. Fortunately, they managed to extricate her without significant damage to the evidence, allowing the police to proceed with their investigation effectively. Photos from the scene have been kept under wraps, but officers revealed that Melissa had been placed into the water face down. She was then secured with the aforementioned cinder blocks and rope, then covered up with sticks and brush to try to conceal her location, but this seems to have been done in a haphazard rush, proving that the criminals weren't prepared for this crime ahead of time. None of Melissa's clothes were found at the scene of the crime, and there was virtually no other evidence to lead investigators to the suspects that may have done this. But when she was pulled from the water, police realized something that shocked them to their core. A crime of passion. When police looked into the evidence that was collected directly from Melissa's remains, they found that she was covered in bruises and had several serious wounds that were inflicted immediately prior to her losing her life. These wounds were indicative of a stun gun being repeatedly used, but the next piece of evidence wasn't what officers would have ever expected. They found that someone had taken Melissa's life with their bare hands, an up-close and personal attack that wasn't consistent with the evidence officers had collected up to this point. They believed they were initially investigating a crime of opportunity, but now they were investigating a crime of passion. When officers began to backtrack Melissa's steps from that day, they first checked her phone records to see who she'd spoken to that evening. They found that one call had come in from a prepaid burner phone at around 8:30 that evening. Investigators discovered that the burner phone had been utilized solely for a single phone call. This revelation directed them to a store in New Hampshire, where the phone had been acquired. Upon inquiring with the store manager regarding the sale, they found that the device had been purchased using a check. The signature on this check linked it to Patricia Prue, the same name that appeared on a business card found in Melissa's residence. The police intended to summon the Prues for questioning, however, they soon realized that such action was unnecessary, as the Prues were already present at the police station upon their return. During their conversation with the couple, Patricia claimed she had come to the station to report her identity theft, suspecting her ex-husband was responsible. The police, however, swiftly shifted the discussion to Melissa Jenkins, to which both Patricia and her husband acknowledged having previously met Melissa, asserting that they were friends. They had assisted her by plowing her driveway a few times during the past winter, a fact corroborated by Melissa's friends and family. It was revealed that while Melissa had been quite friendly with the Prue couple, she had not communicated with them for several months. Although they had maintained a reasonably close friendship, one of Melissa's friends indicated that she had decided to distance herself due to feeling uncomfortable around Alan. Alan harbored romantic feelings for Melissa, which were unfortunately not reciprocated. Despite his repeated invitations for dates, Melissa consistently declined and ultimately ended their business relationship. On that day, the Prues were permitted to leave the police station, however, they were discreetly placed under police surveillance in the following days. Investigators suspected the couple of behaving suspiciously and believed they might be connected to the crime, yet they lacked concrete evidence at that moment. Eventually, the police succeeded in obtaining the CCTV footage from the store where the burner phone had been acquired, revealing both Alan and Patricia in the recordings. During the couple's interrogation, Alan mentioned that he had visited a drive-through restaurant that evening, prompting the police to request footage from that location as well. When the footage was reviewed, investigators were left astonished. The CCTV revealed Alan wearing the same hat that had been discovered at the crime scene, specifically the one found in front of Melissa's vehicle. The police summoned the couple for further questioning, this time interviewing them separately. Patricia denied any involvement or knowledge of the crime, even when confronted with the CCTV evidence and images from the crime scene. Alan, conversely, succumbed to the pressure. He confided in the officers, detailing the events of that ill-fated evening, which were far from pleasant. The police were aware of his prior romantic interest in Melissa, but they could not have anticipated the revelations that followed. Alan disclosed that his wife identified as bisexual and had difficulties with monogamy. She frequently proposed the idea of inviting additional partners into their intimate life, and he felt compelled to acquiesce. On this occasion, the couple had mutually decided to seek someone willing to join them, with Alan specifically desiring to involve Melissa. They devised a scheme to feign car trouble, reaching out to Melissa for assistance. The intention appeared to be to entice her into accompanying them home, but the plan quickly unraveled. Upon Melissa's arrival, Alan forcibly engaged her, managing to overpower her, yet he was unable to complete his intentions. Patricia intervened, bringing the situation to a halt, and together they attempted to conceal Melissa in the back of their vehicle, now gripped by panic over their actions. Unbeknownst to them, Melissa's young son was present in the back seat, having accompanied her that evening. The act was not premeditated, in a sense. They did conspire together in an attempt to persuade Melissa to accompany them, yet both Alan and Patricia maintained that they had no intention of taking her life that day, a claim that is supported by the evidence. Alan asserts that even after the situation escalated, he had no intention of ending her life. He confessed to the authorities that he was not himself that evening and appeared to be consumed by misplaced anger. However, upon realizing the gravity of his actions, he ceased his aggression, at which point Patricia allegedly intervened to complete the act, contrary to Alan's wishes. Throughout the couple's court proceedings and subsequent interrogations, Alan consistently placed the blame on Patricia for Melissa's death. He acknowledged that he allowed his temper to overwhelm him and expressed his willingness to accept any punishment deemed appropriate by the court, yet he never confessed to having taken her life. Ultimately, a jury found both of them guilty, resulting in life sentences for each. Since then, both Patricia and Alan have sought to appeal their sentences, but their appeals have been disregarded. In the years following the crime, they have continued to shift blame onto one another. The reality is that it remains unclear which of the two was the true architect of the crime. What can be stated with certainty is that it appears neither will ever regain their freedom, allowing Melissa's family to begin their journey toward closure.